Hello and welcome to this series called Accountants Becoming Tech Providers with Ingram Micro Cloud, and we're joined by the Dynamics Angels also to talk more around accountants becoming tech providers using our Dynamics Angels program. My name is Matthew Batterby and I'm the Ingram Micro Cloud UK and EMEA Dynamics lead. And I'm your contact for all things Dynamics 365 at Ingram Micro Cloud. I'm going to hand you over, though, into the capable hands of Rob Pope, who is the Dynamics Angels IT Global Director, to talk more about this particular episode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is one of the series of webinars that myself and Matt have put together, really to lift the lid on a number of different areas where tech providers and accountants are now coming together. And I think that one of the first parts of this series is really to kind of lift the lid and talk to you as accountants on how tech providers engage with your customers. And that hopefully will give you some insight with regards to how tech providers have that conversation, how they build trust within your customers, the customers that you as accountants are already servicing, and talk to them about digital transformation and how they can evolve their organizations. Now, just to put it into context, my background, I was at Microsoft for 4.5 years. I'm still very new to the accountancy sector. I moved into a new role about 4 months ago. So we're now in mid-corona, which if anybody's watching this in the future, you'll wonder what on earth all the fuss was about, hopefully. But as I said, relatively new into role, 3 months in role, but before that, spent 4.5 years at Microsoft, really talking to end customers and being part of particularly the Dynamics part of Microsoft, which is the part of the organization that sells business applications to SMB customers. So customers that are traditionally use an accountant. People like accountants quite often will have previously sold platforms like Sage. Microsoft has a platform called Dynamics, which broadly speaking covers off the ERP, finance or accountancy platforms, but also covers off the CRM platforms. Now, I'm not going to go through that in a huge amount of detail in this episode. What I'm going to do is really kind of lift the lid and give you some insight in how Microsoft, how tech providers sell to your customers and talk to your customers. And that hopefully will give you some insight as to how you can start to repivot your organization to become a tech provider in your own right, and to really leverage the conversations and the opportunities that technology provides to your customers and is driving their growth, and is something that realistically accountants should very much be part of. So I'll start quickly just with an insight as to some of the content that Microsoft used to provide and talk how they position to your customers.
It's this dual challenge of how do we help create all these applications and then bring all the data together that's inspiring us to build out Power Platform and Dynamics 365 as the world's connected business cloud.
That's one of the strengths Microsoft helps bring to the table. It's not only Azure and Dynamics 365 that really integrate well with our vision, but then the knowledge of how to apply some advanced digital techniques to data and how to utilize those platforms in a very efficient manner.
We believe that customer insights can help us pick better, and we can empower the employees with that knowledge to be even more personal, to have our guests be more pleased when they leave the garden.
Traditionally, mobile software development is pricey and lengthy and requires a very specific set of skills. And through discovering Power Apps and using that, it really helped us feel more confident in our role. And I think it really clicked when I opened it, how much better we could provide customer service to our internal business areas.
And that's why we selected Dynamics 365 to enable our salespeople to better sell. After we implemented the data warehouse and Dynamics 365, we had a 30% year-over-year increase in our season ticket sales, with essentially the same team on the floor.
Every company struggles with training. Products are much more complex. So how do you keep up We see guides and HoloLens as a great tool to change how adults learn. There's video built in, there's step-by-step instructions that can overlay holographic images. And so when you have in-depth training from an electronic mentor, we believe you'll be up to speed in a compressed time frame.
Data in one system is helping you optimize the outcome of another system. That's what an AI-first company does. That's what an AI-first software product does.
So as Microsoft, you can see that their conversation has shifted. A lot of the conversation that Microsoft partners, technology providers have with customers is now all about data. And that data is something that you'll see us talk about in future episodes when we talk about AI, cognitive services, machine learning, and the impact that those technologies have on an organization. And all of that fundamentally comes back down to data that you as accountants are hugely familiar with working with, details of who bought what, when they bought it, how they bought it, how much money people owe. And that whole process is something that technology providers are very much leveraging as part of their story to end customers. It's about how they move into this proactive world using particularly technologies around the AI hub, how we can start to talk about being proactive action, about connecting and holistic data, and more importantly, delivering an outcome to an organization. What we see is many accounting organizations providing the services on the left-hand side of the screen, really around showing the reporting. But a lot of that reporting is obviously historic. The technology providers are now leveraging that data to look into the future, to predict, and to help those organizations grow. And fundamentally, the role as an accountant is often to be a business advisor, to help that organization understand how they can improve. And a great portion of that conversation now is really about data, and therefore it's really about technology. And as part of this series, we'll discuss ways that accountants can become technology providers in the areas that you can use and leverage the skills that you have in understanding an organization, how they work, and how you can use that knowledge, that ability to talk to the business and understand the business to move into becoming more of a technology advisor to your customer base. And we look at this data connection piece and how, as Microsoft and other vendors talk to your customers about that data is now coming from everywhere. It's in sensors in your phone, it's in sensors in your watch, it's in your car, it's in some of the tooling and the machinery that you may have in your organization. And that pulling that data together and being able to make sense of it historically used to be something that accountants would do to provide profit and loss and various reporting mechanisms to understand how a business was growing. That data now drives digital transformation. And when we look at what those pillars are and how Microsoft talks to organizations about digital transformation, one of the ways they do that is to boil it down into 4 key pillars. And we talk about those pillars of digital transformation, and it really allows a technology provider to shift away from a IT conversation into a business-led conversation where technology like Dynamics, like Azure, like Office 365 are going to have an impact on how an organization operates. Those 4 key pillars are transform products, optimize operations, empower people, and engage customers. And actually, that's quite a good way of framing a conversation with an organization with regards to how you're going to grow. And those 4 key pillars are the way that an organization can also embrace digital transformation, and the way that as an organization and as an accountant, you can actually have that conversation yourselves with your customer base and your prospects. When we talk about how are they going to engage customers, a key part of that is data. Who are your customers? What have they bought? When did they buy it? Do they need to buy some more? What do we know about our customer base? We all are buyers 2.0. Everybody on this webinar now has changed the way that they buy goods and services. Recommendation has become key. You look at the feedback on Amazon or eBay before you make a purchase. And being able to engage a customer who is a long way down the cycle of purchasing is key to being able to help an organization grow. How do they transform their products? So how do your customers move into models where, like Microsoft, for example, and like many others, they've moved away from a single cost point, a CapEx type process? How do you as accountants help move your own business into more of a managed service where you're billing a subscription and helping your customers build subscription-based businesses that leverage the technology that's now available in the market. That has a big impact on cash flow. It has a big impact on how an organization operates. It also means they need new technology to control those processes. How do they manage subscription billing, for example? Again, this comes back down to technology and the kind of conversations that Dynamics helps drive within an organization. And again, a business advisory conversation about where the opportunity to grow comes from that kind of conversation. When we look at optimize operations, it's again very much about how does that organization become more efficient. Now, historically, accounting practice was obviously the way that many organizations looked at that. You know, how can they become more efficient? How can they manage cash more effectively? Technology is now a huge part of that, but also that ability to leverage the data that's in platforms like Dynamics has a huge impact on that optimization process. And again, being able to kind of flip into that conversation about technology and the impact that technology is going to have on an organization is something that accountants have this ability to do with very limited support, because you're used to having that conversation with an organization, with a business about their operation and how they run their organization. And lastly, empower people. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with technology like Power BI. And those components, and actually, more importantly, perhaps one of the most common, which I absolutely guarantee you will all use, is Excel. How do you use technology like Power BI, like Excel, to give better reporting insights, to provide that access to data that your customers need to be able to understand their businesses, and also using those technology, using that data, using those visualization tools around Excel, around Power BI, but also around this ability to work from anywhere. In this COVID situation as we stand now, the ability to empower, the ability to use technology like Office 365 to work from anywhere, to be able to run your business in effect from the kitchen table, is something that will change all businesses fundamentally in the future, as those who have been able to embrace this technology and understand it can also then use it to create opportunities into the future. As I start to get towards the close of this first session, we also then start to look at how Microsoft is approaching some of the other areas around data. A lot of the areas of data, and we start to talk about how data centers and how that move to compute. To put this into context, that data centers will account for 20% of the world's electric usage and 5% of carbon emissions by 2025 if we continue at the current rate. As you can imagine, we've had to find new ways and new pieces of technology to help with that. And that, again, is coming back to innovation about how the growth of data, the growth of data centers, the growth of the use of that data, and being able to navigate that area is something that's going to become hugely important in the future. Microsoft, for example, have changed the way that they deliver many of their data centers. You're probably wondering what the picture on the screen that you're looking at is. It's actually a data center that's now under the sea, using seawater as part of Project Nantic, and putting it underwater and saving huge amounts of electricity and cooling, but also saving an awful lot of space on land and having to deforest by using areas under the sea where these platforms can be built in a simple and easy fashion. But the big part about that also then comes back to, and I think one of the things we see in this world today is around trust. Microsoft particularly talks extensively about trust, about how trust is a key tenet in how organizations can manage and use, and importantly, retain their data. Microsoft's positioning to customers is always that their data is their data. It's not Microsoft's data. And that trust is something that permeates all the way through the offerings that they provide. And it's also something that there's an argument that says that particularly accountants should be very mindful around trust, particularly being custodians of very sensitive data. Carrying that data around now on a paper ledger would be unheard of. That's actually incredibly insecure. When organizations are transferring data by Excel spreadsheets over the public internet, again, that's insecure. There are so many standard often free components that are available within Microsoft technology that allow you to secure data very efficiently and very effectively using digital rights management. But also the fact that actually that strength and power that Microsoft provide now with their cloud platforms builds that trust within the organization to use the cloud. The cloud is arguably way more secure now than the old models of doing things on premise on a server, using a backup of Sage, for example, and using Excel spreadsheets that you leave in Dropbox accounts. None of those things would be considered compliant now. There is an argument that accountants have a duty of care, not just to use the technology, not necessarily Microsoft, but to use security technology themselves within their organization, but also to have a good understanding and advocacy and being able to explain and guide SMB customers who may not have that depth of knowledge. But as custodians of the most secure and most important data of their customers, accountants have potentially an opportunity to build on that and also to leverage the Microsoft Trust Center. There's a huge amount of information in the Microsoft Trust Center that you can use, rely on, and direct your customers to if they have any queries about governance and concern. And as a precursor to the next session, one of the other areas that we feel that accountants have a huge opportunity in is understanding AI. Now, AI for many is something that is quite nebulous. It's quite a concept that's perhaps a little bit off in the distance. And one of the things that Microsoft has been very keen to do is to try and support organizations and help people like accountants understand AI, understand the opportunity behind AI, and be able to have a conversation with your customers. As thought leaders, as the trusted advisors of your customers, having that access to that knowledge and being able to provide that pass through and have an intelligent conversation with your customer based on knowledge is something that Microsoft's keen to support. So Microsoft AI Business School is free of charge. Just type in AI Business School, Microsoft AI Business School into any well-known search engine, and you'll find a huge amount of free resource. And I'll just give you a little bit more information as we progress.
AI Business School empowers business leaders to lead with confidence in the age of AI.
I really encourage you to be open and curious about AI, about its impacts, about its possibilities.
AI Business School is a series designed to help organizations address the opportunities and challenges when adopting AI. Featuring perspectives from industry leaders successfully embracing AI.
Start small. So think in the use cases that are most important for your organization.
Talks on AI business value and practical guides to help you define your strategy.
AI can and will substantially improve our collective efficiencies on both supply and demand planning.
Learnings and insights from leaders who are driving and fostering an AI-ready culture.
Defining the clinical and business and technical success criteria upfront is really paramount.
And an inside look at Microsoft's AI evolution.
We needed to build confidence in our leadership and our people that the adoption of these tools was going to actually make them better at their job.
And AI governance models.
How do we build and use AI systems that create a positive impact on individuals and society? These are the issues that are fundamental for organizations.
Designed to move at the speed of business, AI Business School is on demand, easy to consume, and available now. In the age of AI, how will you lead?
So I'd urge you all to look at the AI Business School. It gives a huge amount of insight, and it's actually, to some extent, a trailer for the next or subsequent sessions of this webinar series. In future series, future episodes, we will talk about AI. We'll talk about the impact on accountants, but also I'd urge you to kind of, if you've got interest in any of this area, there is a free book, Future Computed, written by Satya Nadella and others, that really gives you some insight into the fundamental impact that technology, that AI and data are going to have on organizations and the human race all up. And we'll talk about that in subsequent episodes with regards to where that leaves accountants and how we can help you on your journey to become digital advisors, digital technology advisors to your customers, and how you can embrace this technology going forwards to move into different business streams, to move into different arenas, and to appropriately advise your customers, particularly as they go through some of the trials and tribulations that no doubt COVID-19 will provide for many of them. So thank you very much for your time, everybody. I look forward to subsequent sessions. And if you've got any questions, my details and Matthew's details are on the screen in front of you. Look forward to answer any queries and taking this forward with you. Thank you very much.